everyone. Today I want to go over how to use Sfumato in your drawings and some specific techniques to create Sfumato in your drawings. So in a little bit, I'll zoom in on my tiny little Sfumato example here, but first I want to go over some general things. So if you recall, Sfumato is the use of hazy, blurred, or smoky transitions in your drawing. So transitions being maybe the transition between the object and the background, or one part of the object and another part of the object. Any areas that you would normally use outlines, you can replace with these blurred transitions that we call Sfumato. If you're not that familiar with Sfumato, I recommend selecting a more rounded, simple object to draw because that will be an easier way to implement Sfumato initially. There's a few things to keep in mind when you're using Sfumato. The first one is that the Sfumato should be clearly present. A lot of times when I ask students to use Sfumato, at first they'll be sort of tentative with it. They'll have a few slightly blurred lines in their drawing, but it won't be blurred enough to be considered Sfumato or to be clearly Sfumato from the viewer's distance. So go more blurry than you think you need to, and definitely step back from your drawing on a regular basis to make sure that you can see that blurring from the viewer's distance away. Second thing to keep in mind is that there's some push and pull when it comes to Sfumato. So I definitely recommend trying to take it too far at some point. Blur some area of the object so much that it just doesn't work anymore and you need to crisp it up a little bit. And you'll be surprised how far you can go with the blurriness before the object becomes too indistinct or the drawing just isn't working anymore. But there is a bit of push and pull between how blurry you can go with each area of the object. You don't have to use Sfumato in every single area of the drawing. Certain areas of the drawing you will find lend themselves well to Sfumato, and then other areas you may find don't look great with Sfumato, and maybe you don't use it in those few select areas. The third thing to keep in mind is that Sfumato is an exaggeration or an interpretation of what you see in real life. So when we look at things in real life, they typically don't have, super blurry boundaries between, say, a tree and the landscape behind it. Some people can get that effect if you're nearsighted and you take your glasses off, you'll actually see the Sfumato effect. But in general, that's not what we see too much in real life. So we are exaggerating what we see in real life to get the Sfumato effect in a drawing. And the reason we do this is to enhance the sense of form. So as those clear boundaries disappear, the sense of form starts to become enhanced and the illusion of form on the 2D surface is stronger. All right, so I will pause here and then I'll zoom in on my drawing so you can see what I'm doing. So the first question to try and answer is, where am I using Sfumato in this little study? I'm using Sfumato throughout a lot of it. The places you can see it most clearly right now are right here, where there's that hazy transition between the base of the bird sculpture and the shadow. You can also see it pretty well along this edge is a blurrier transition, and I'm starting to get more blurring in this area as well. Some areas where I'd say I'm not using Sfumato yet would be along this edge. It's still fairly crisp. So I'm not using Sfumato everywhere. I won't necessarily use Sfumato everywhere, but I'm getting a good start on it. Another thing to keep in mind is that I do have value gradients in some areas. So for example, in this shadow, I have a value gradient. In this shadow, I have a value gradient. And those value gradients in and of themselves aren't Sfumato. Sfumato is more of the blurred boundaries between things. The value gradients are great for creating form as well, but they won't really count as Sfumato in a final drawing. So I think I'll continue to enhance the Sfumato between the shadow and the bird sculpture by just going in with some circular strokes of the pencil And I'll just kind of see how far I can go as far as enhancing this Sfumato effect. And it may take several layers of the media because I am creating a gradual transition between the bottom of the bird sculpture and the shadow. And in general, if you're starting a drawing, you're not sure where to implement Sfumato to begin with, the area where the base of an object and the shadow come together can be a great area to have Sfumato. Let's see, I may even be able to go quite a lot darker with this. So I'm blurring this area more and more, but my eye still kind of tells me where the bottom edge of the bird is located. I can kind of understand it from this bottom edge and make a parallel with that bottom edge in my brain. So even though I'm completely getting rid of the transition in this case, my brain will fill in what I cannot see. And these little circular motions work best. You can do the same thing with charcoal or any other drawing utensil to get that soft effect, and many layers of that circular motion tends to be the best. You can do the same circular motion with a smudge stick. You can also use an eraser if you want to get lighter overall. And I'll kind of try this along this edge. So it was pretty crisp before, but let's see how blurry I can make it and have it still look good. So I think that still looks pretty decent actually. And maybe I want to blur the transition between shadow and the highlight a bit more as well. Start to see what that looks like. Starting to get some Sfumato in there. So those are my main recommendations on how to create Sfumato. Just keep layering, increasing the blurriness over time. Try to increase the blurriness even more with this transition. So I'm definitely taking some liberties from what I see in real life. But it's starting to create a really great sense of form. And layering is a big key with Sfumato as well, so this still needs a lot more layers before it is complete. So that's all for this lesson. Be sure to refer to the PowerPoint for this lesson as well. I will include photos of this drawing from before this stage all the way up until when I finish it, so that you can get a better idea of the whole process. And that's all for now.